Whether you're just starting out in real estate investing or already making strides, the Investor Evolution podcast is tailored for you. Come along as we tackle these questions directly and deliver practical insights to empower your journey in the realm of real estate investing. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Investor Evolution podcast. I am your host, Kimberly Hoyt. I am so glad you're with us today. For those of you who have been with me, I hope you noticed the little change to the intro. We've got some music going, and I wanted to share with you that this music was produced by my 9-year-old son, Oliver. He got on the GarageBand app and created me some theme music, and I love it. It makes me so happy. He's really excited about the podcast. He wants a podcast, so I was like, okay, I need you to make me some music. So he got that going for me. Since he created that first little riff for me, I'm going to make him create some more so that we can have a little variety until I find one that's like the perfect fit. Although I really do like this one, but I want him to create some other things for me and use his imagination. So stay tuned. Each week we might have a new little theme song until we find the perfect one. And I might even, we'll see if I can create a little contest for voting on which one you guys like best, and we'll go with that one. But anyway, super excited that he is wanting to be along on this journey and that he's helping out. All right, let's dive in today. We are actually going to do something a little bit different today. We've been talking about real estate. We talked about the investor avatars last week. This week, I want to change focus a little bit, and we're going to work on some mindset stuff. For me, I know one of the things that I've struggled with is setting goals that make sense and that I actually achieve. To me, I think of like the dream board, right? You have these things on your dream board and you put them up there, and then sometimes it feels so ambiguous and so unrealistic that it's hard to make those dreams the reality. And it's not that those dreams are unattainable, undoable, or unrealistic. It's that we didn't create a plan to actually get there. Some of you know that I have done some coaching and did a coaching course, and that'll be another part of my journey moving forward. One of the things that we talked about in that course to help our clients is setting goals in a way that we are more likely to achieve those goals. And I wanted to share that with you today. And I'll use some examples from my own life to help lay that foundation. So today we're going to talk about the GROW model. And GROW is an acronym that stands for goals, realities, obstacles, and the way forward. Now, this was adopted from the original model created by J T Whitmore. And his original was goals, reality, options, and the way forward. And the coaching masters that I did in my coaching course, they tweaked it a little bit, and we'll talk about some of those differences. So get your pens and pencils ready. Let's dive in and let's talk about how to set goals in a structured way. So first one, G, right? It's the goals. It's what we're talking about. The one thing when we are setting goals that we need to make sure we're doing is to be crystal clear about what that goal truly is. For example, when I started my podcast in September-ish last year, I had another podcast that I started, and it was from a challenge that we were doing in the Pace Morby world. It was called Project Forward. And that was one of the steps we had to do was create a podcast. And that was great. It forced me to do it because I had to. And I just did it. It was a great experience. And I got about 6, 7, 8 maybe episodes in. And because I didn't really have a plan for it, it was hard for me to keep going because I didn't really have a purpose. So this time around, when I was thinking I wanted to start a podcast, here are the reasons why, and these are the goals that I'm going for. When I decided I wanted to revamp this and restart it, it was for several different reasons. One, I wanted to create my personal brand. 2, I wanted to create a platform that I could communicate with, that people could get to know me through, and that I can create an audience. Another incredible thing that this will provide as we get going is resources. When other investors, maybe new investors, come to me, or someone's like, hey, I know you're in real estate. How do I even get started? Oh, that is such a great question. Awesome. I would love to share with you. I want you to go check out my podcast. Episode 2 is all about real estate investor avatars. And let's see if there's one that resonates with you, and then come back and let's chat about it, right? So that creates a resource that I can give to others. It provides credibility and adds value to my audience. So that was another reason why I wanted to be intentional about creating this podcast. Now, I have other things that I'm looking to do in the future, and I want to create that brand recognition, that know, like, and trust factor with my audience. So as I start bringing other things of value in, and I'm building some other areas of business out, for example, I just finished the transaction coordinator course and I'm building out that business. This will be a place to highlight transaction coordinators, what I'm doing, and offer that to my audience. Again, it's a place that if someone comes to me and says, hey, I know you might be a TC, what work have you done? Great, let me show you some resources. So it all ties together. Now, the first time around, it was just start a podcast. There was no real thought behind it or real goal orientation behind it. But now I have that specific goal and I can see it bigger. And now I'm going to be able to refine that as I go and make sure that the content that I'm putting out is aligning with my goals and my vision for this podcast. As you're setting your goals, you want to make sure that those goals are crystal clear. You want to know where you're going. So things you want to ask: what would I like to accomplish? What results am I trying to achieve? What outcome would be ideal for me? What do I want to change? All of these questions help refine those goals. Another thing that I want you to think about is, what would you like that future to look, sound, and feel like? So let's go back to the podcast example. For me, what I can see with this podcast moving forward and what I would like it to represent is, I want it to be something that I'm incredibly proud of, first of all, right? And I want that feeling of pride, like, look what I've accomplished. I set out on this mission and I've accomplished that goal. I want it to be a place where I can send prospective clients, partners to say, hey, check this out. I talked about this on that podcast, and it's a place of credibility. It's a place where people can learn to know me, to like me, and trust me moving forward. So I feel like when I see the big picture, what I feel is this sense of, I have my platform that I'm able to speak from that is truly authentic to me, that it's not me trying to be anyone other than me, who I am, and what I represent. Those are the type of things that, as my podcast evolves, those are the things that I'm thinking about and working towards. Other questions that you might want to ask: how do you want to feel as you achieve these goals? What do you want to achieve in the long term? So what is the long-term goal? And then you can create these smaller goals to stair-step your way to that long-term vision, right? So that's the G in the GROW model. The next one, I love this one. This is resources. If you're in the Pace Morby world, you're going to hear these questions. What do you have? What do you need? So we're taught when we go to meetups to ask each other, what do you have? What do you need? Great. I have this type of business. This is what I'm getting. I'm generating leads. What do I need? I need a closer, someone to come in and help me close those leads. So when you're thinking about this goal, so the podcast, okay, What internal resources do I have that will help me achieve this goal? Okay. Couple of things. I don't mind talking in front of the camera. I was nervous at first, but now I'm learning to do it and just making the mistakes as I go and moving forward. I have some tech skills and I have a figure it out button, right? I can figure a lot of stuff out. Is it perfect? Nope. I have the intention and the reason why I want to do this behind that to help move me forward. Other resources that you might have that are internal to you, those are great things to start listing out because it builds your confidence, right? When you're like, okay, I have courage. have no problem speaking in front of the camera. I have the ability to research and learn about the things that I don't have or that I don't know how to do. Whatever those resources are, as you start listing them out, those things that you have, especially those internal resources, it boosts your confidence. You're like, okay, like I can totally do this. Now I want you to think about what are the internal resources that you need to achieve this goal. Okay, I need to develop that consistency. I want to make sure that I'm airing my podcast every Monday. And so I need to be consistent in planning out my weeks to make sure I'm recording and not doing it at the last minute. Whatever those resources might be that you're lacking and need to make sure are in place. Maybe I need to be a little more brave in asking for different guests to come on to find the people who are doing the things that I want to do for a couple of reasons. I want to build those relationships, but what value will that provide for you guys? So what internal resources do I need to do? I need to be brave. I need to be more consistent. Okay. So the next question you're going to want to ask yourself is external resources. What external resources do I have available to me that are going to make this podcast work? I've got a computer. I've got a microphone. I have a decent background. Those are all external resources that I can use. Now, what are the external resources that I need? I had no idea how to host a podcast. I didn't know you needed to host a podcast. When I first started with the initial podcast that I did for the Project Forward, I just put it on YouTube, which is great. And that's a great place to start. But then I learned that in order to put it on the platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, those things, you need a podcast hosting server to be able to upload those to the different places. So I learned a lot. So I needed to know as far as podcast recordings, how best to record things. Can I do it on Zoom? Can I do it just on my phone? What is the best way to do that? Again, and it's just finding out the things that you have, the things that you need, so you know where to go, right? You know the steps that you need to take in order to make these goals happen. Another great question, once you go through what internal resources do I have and do I need, what external resources do I have and do I need, I want you to ask yourself this question. What resources have I not thought of yet? And this is a great skill in creativity and brainstorming to help you think of all the different things that may be beneficial for your goals that you just didn't really think about. So take some time to actually do this step because you're probably going to come up with some really cool things that you're like, it's going to make things so much easier. Awesome. Move it forward. Another question to ask yourself is, what do I need to obtain these resources? So as I'm working on the podcast host, a recording site, how to edit stuff, do I need a specific software to edit and create my podcast? What does that look like? And what are the things that I'm going to need? And are these things I need to save up for? Is this purchases that I need to do now? What does that look like? Again, just so you're creating that plan, that checklist to move you forward. Another great question. Is there anyone else that can help me achieve this goal? One of the really cool things, I'm going to give a shout out to Justin Barber. I have been watching him and watching his podcasts. They are awesome. They are very well put together. They look incredibly professional. They're fantastic. I also really love his interview style. So I've connected with him a little bit to learn about what he's doing. And he has a lot of experience. He's done videography and editing and has like all the pro stuff. But he gave me some information and some tips that I can use. And I really appreciated that, right? Because it was stuff that I didn't know and gave me a resource that I can use. So there are going to be people who are doing what you want to be doing. Talk with them, connect with them. More often than not, people love to help, right? And they want to help you. They probably went through trial and error, made a lot of mistakes, figured things out the hard way. And when you can sit down and have a conversation with them, if they're at the place where you want to be, they can show you the path and give you some guidance. And that is incredibly helpful. One of the other things that we hear a lot from PACE is it's not about what you know, it's who you know. Who do you need in your business to help move you forward? Who are those other resources? Who are the people resources that you have access to or that you need access to move you forward in those goals? People are important as we are moving forward, right? We're never doing this alone. There's no business that is in isolation. We always need others to help us and that we can help in turn. So make those connections, make those relationships. Okay, next in line is the O, and obstacles is the way I learned it. In the original GROW model, the O was options. And I think both are important. So we'll turn it into the GROW model. We'll add that extra O in there. Options, when I think about that, there's always different ways to do things. Now, this could be talking with someone else and getting some other opinions of ways that you can structure those goals. I think about like when you are, let's say you're climbing a 14er here in Colorado. Some of those mountains, there's only one way up. Some of them, there's easier, slower paths that may take a lot longer, but are much easier to navigate. There may be more direct, but more difficult paths that you can take. And to have those different options depends on maybe you need speed and you're okay with paying a little bit more money for whatever that is because you need that speed. Maybe you don't have money, but you do have time, so it's okay if it takes you a little bit longer to get to where you need to be. Having those different options is a good thing. One thing I will caution you, however, is don't get analysis by paralysis, right? Sometimes if you have too many options, then it becomes overwhelming and you don't even get started. So beware of that with the options. Okay. The other O is obstacles. One of the ways that we can help ourselves as we're achieving goals is focus on possible or potential obstacles that might stand in your way. By focusing on them beforehand and understanding how to navigate them before you get going, so you have a roadmap around them, will help so you don't get stuck and turn back once you hit that obstacle as you get moving forward. Now, these obstacles could be time. Maybe you have this goal for your podcast or whatever it is, and you need to set aside a certain amount of time each week in order to work on the tasks that you need to accomplish that goal. What are you going to do when that time frame gets thrown off? Maybe you forgot about your kid's soccer game on Wednesday night that you totally were planning on recording that podcast, and now you have to shift it. Where are you going to have other pockets of time to make up that recording, or whatever it is for your goal? If you plan ahead, then once you say, oh man, that soccer game came out of nowhere, I'm so glad I planned Saturday mornings to have that extra buffer time in case I need it. If you can plan for those obstacles ahead of time, that's really helpful. This is something we will talk about as we move forward in relation to real estate investing. When you're JV partnering with someone, or maybe you're coming in as a private money lender on a deal, if you lay out all the problems that can happen beforehand and you guys talk about what happens if you go into default, what happens if your contractor runs away with the money and you haven't, and the job is left incomplete. What happens if the project goes over time? What are the contingency plans? And you talk about those things beforehand, again, before money's on the line and emotions are high, and you have a strategic game plan moving forward. Doesn't that feel so much lighter going into that transaction versus not hearing from your partner what's going on, and then you find out later something bad happened and they didn't want to talk to you about it because they didn't know how they were going to solve it, right? If you can solve those problems up front in case they happen, it's so much easier moving forward. And then when they come up, you know what you're going to do. You already have that game plan in mind. Okay, so some solution-focused obstacle questions. What's the biggest obstacle you're likely to face, and how do you intend on overcoming this obstacle? So let's go back to the podcast. Maybe that's coming up with ideas for the podcast. One thing I can do is anytime I hear something that's like, oh, I'm really glad I heard that, maybe from somebody else's podcast, write that down as an idea. This is something that I can talk about on my podcast. Maybe it's the timing, maybe it's my ability to improve the quality. Do I need to outsource it at some point? And what would that look like? When would I decide that? When would it make sense to do that? Those kind of things. Another question, what is stopping you from achieving this goal right now? This kind of goes back to maybe the resources. Maybe you need those resources implemented, and you need to start gathering those resources that you don't have in order to move you forward. Two great questions that I think are imperative to ask when you're thinking about these obstacles. What obstacle have you already faced when pursuing this goal? Because if you've already faced it moving forward, you probably will hit that again. And when you can forward think and plan ahead, you'll be able to move around that obstacle, right? The last time I started a podcast, I didn't have a plan. So this time around, I'm making some plans, I'm thinking about how I want this structured, what I want this to look like, and I have that plan moving forward. I can tweak it and adjust it as I go, but at least I know exactly what direction I'm going in and what I want to accomplish first. The other question that I think is really important, what mindset barrier might you face, and what can you do to work on that now? As you get going in these goals, it gets tough, right? It's hard. It's something you haven't done before. And that negative mindset or that attitude of maybe this really isn't for me might start popping in. And if you can think about that beforehand and know these are the things that usually stop me. For me, it's like, maybe it's really not meant for me. It's not working out like I thought. So maybe this isn't really what I need to be doing and focusing my time on. And instead of thinking that way, thinking, okay, I know why I want to do this. I know the purpose. I see other people who have implemented this podcast and that has moved them leaps and bounds in their business because they have that credibility and they have that platform to talk from. So when I have those things in mind before even starting, when those days come when I'm frustrated and I can't think of the right things to say and I have to edit so much because I keep messing up, it's okay. This is just part of the learning process. And I know where I'm going because I've already thought about that beforehand. Okay. So I think that one's a really good one. And thinking about past goals that maybe you haven't achieved, what mindset was the limiting factor for that? And how can you confront that beforehand? I think those are really important questions. So we are on the last one, the W of the GROW model, and W stands for the way forward. We have done a lot of work up to this point. We've picked our goals. We've talked about the resources that we have in us, the resources we have available to us, the resources that we need to develop for ourselves, and the resources we need to go outsource. We've talked about the obstacles that might come up that could derail us and how we're going to navigate around those so we can keep going. And now we need to start, right? This is the way forward. These are the questions of how exactly am I going to bring this goal into reality? What am I going to do right now to move myself forward? What is the way forward? So some of the solution-focused questions you're going to ask yourself, what do I need to do right now, today, to achieve my goal? Now, I'm probably not going to achieve the goal today, but what do I need to do to start working towards it, right? What are those stair steps that I need to get going on to work towards those goals? Another question you might ask yourself, what 3 actions this week do I need to take to move forward towards this goal or in my business? A good thing you might want to do, and this could be daily or it could be weekly. What did I do yesterday? What did I accomplish yesterday? And what do I need to do today? And if you can reflect either in the morning or at night or both, right? What do I need to work on today? What did I accomplish today? Do that morning and night is a good way to keep you moving forward. And you can then start to identify, oh, okay, this is the resource I need. This is what I'm lacking for me to keep moving forward. So I need to make sure I go out and get that software so that I can edit my videos, whatever that might be. When you're reflecting on where you're at and where you're going, that helps you keep pace. Another thing that I think that's very helpful for is it shows you how far you've come. Maybe you're checking morning, what do I need to do today? What did I accomplish today in the evening? And you're doing that for a couple of weeks and you're feeling stuck. When you look back at, okay, where did I start? Here's where I'm at. Maybe my goal's up here, but I went from here to here in 3 weeks. I'm halfway to my goal. When you focus on the gain versus the gap, that can be very empowering to your mission because you realize, man, I have come so far. I've come so far, I can't turn around now. That's a great place to be in, a great mindset to be in, right? Another couple of questions you might ask, and this could be like on your daily check-ins, what is the single most important thing that I need to do today to move forward? What actionable steps do I need to take to ensure that I'm successful? And we've already created a roadmap, right? We've gone through, we've listed our goals, our resources, our obstacles, and now we can go back and pull out those actionable steps, the things that are going to move you forward. And that will show you the way. Okay, guys, so that is the GROW model and how we can structure goals and planning those goals in a way that makes them much more achievable than just throwing them on a board and thinking it's going to happen, right? It gives us some structure and it gives us a path that feels so much more doable to accomplish those goals. So we're going to set those goals and we're going to define those goals in such a way that it's crystal clear, that you can see it, that you can feel it, that you know what it looks like when you accomplish that goal. We're going to think about all the resources we have, internal resources, external resources. We're going to go out and get the resources that we need, whether that's working on our mindset, working on our skill set, or working on external resources. We're going to look for the who that can help us as well along our journey. We're going to think about the obstacles that can come along in our journey that could derail us, and we're going to plan and make contingency plans to work around that obstacle so we're not derailed by those as they come up. And then finally, we're going to start plotting our way forward. We're going to create actionable steps and items that we can do each day, each week, and moving forward to move us towards our goals. All right, everyone, I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this provides a great roadmap for how you can start structuring your goals in a way that makes it super simple and makes it so that it feels like every goal is clearly obtainable because you have that path laid out for you. All right, guys, until next week, you have a fantastic one. Enjoy the music, and we'll see you next time.